For 10 years, I thought my sister was the perfect one, the one who never messed up, the one my parents bragged about at every family dinner. Then one Sunday afternoon, while cleaning out our late grandmother's attic, I found a box that changed everything I thought I knew about her and about myself. My name doesn't matter for this story, so let's just say I'm the other sister, the younger one, the one who wasn't valedictorian, didn't marry a doctor, and definitely didn't get her name engraved on the community centre wall like Claire did. Growing up, Claire was 7 years older than me, which meant by the time I was old enough to actually know her, she was already a legend in our house. Straight A's, full ride to college. The kind of daughter parents use as a measuring stick against every other kid in the family, whether they mean to or not. I loved her, I did, but I also spent most of my childhood in her shadow, quietly resentful, never saying it out loud because how do you resent someone that good? Then, 3 months ago, our grandmother passed away. She was the last of that generation on my mum's side, and the job of clearing out her house fell to me and Claire, since our parents live out of state and couldn't handle the trip on short notice. We spent 2 weekends going through decades of stuff. Furniture, photo albums, my grandfather's old tools. It was exhausting but oddly bonding. We hadn't spent that much time together, just the two of us, in years. On the second Sunday, in the back of the attic, behind a stack of old curtains, I found a shoebox. Water damaged on one corner, tied shut with a rubber band that snapped the second I touched it. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, all addressed to Claire, all from the same person. At first, I assumed they were old letters from a boyfriend. Something sweet and embarrassing I could tease her about. I actually called out to her, half joking, "Hey, did you have a secret admirer nobody told me about?" She came over, saw the box in my hands, and her face did something I had never seen it do before. It went completely blank. Not surprised, not confused. Blank like she'd been expecting this moment for a decade and had already rehearsed how her face should look when it finally came. She asked me to give her the box. I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe some instinct told me this wasn't a boyfriend thing. I opened the first letter right there in the attic, and I remember the handwriting more than the words at first, because it was shaky, uneven, like whoever wrote it was struggling physically to hold the pen. The letters were from our grandmother, not the version of her we knew. Sharp, funny, a little blunt. These letters were written by someone scared and apologizing. Over and over, the short version pieced together from a dozen letters spanning almost 2 years. When Claire was 19 during her sophomore year of college, she got pregnant. She didn't tell our parents. She told our grandmother instead. And our grandmother, quietly, without a single other person in the family knowing, helped her through it, arranged everything, drove her to appointments 3 states away so no one from our small town would recognize her. Paid for it out of a savings account she'd apparently kept secret from our grandfather too. Claire never told our parents. She went back to school 2 weeks later. She graduated on time. She gave the speech at graduation. She never missed a beat, at least not one anyone else could see. Standing in that attic, letters in my hand, I finally looked at my sister. Not the legend, not the measuring stick, just her. And she looked 10 years older than she had 5 minutes earlier. She sat down on an old trunk and just started talking. Things spilled out that she said she'd never told a single living person. How terrified she'd been, how she'd driven home from that last appointment and sat in the parking lot of our old high school for 3 hours because she didn't know how to walk into a house and pretend to be fine. How our grandmother was the only person who never once made her feel like a disappointment. Just made her tea, sat with her, and told her that surviving something quietly doesn't make it less real. She told me she used to hear me complain as a teenager about how perfect she was, how I'd never measure up. And she said she wanted so badly to tell me the truth. Not to defend herself, but because she was so tired of being a symbol instead of a person. But by the time she trusted me enough, too many years had passed, and the secret had calcified into something she didn't know how to unstick. I sat next to her on that trunk, and for the first time in our entire lives, we weren't sisters playing roles. We were just two people who'd both spent a decade lonely in different ways. We haven't told our parents, and honestly, I don't think we ever will. That's Claire's choice to make, not mine, and I've made peace with keeping it. What changed isn't the facts of the story. What changed is how I see her and how I see myself. I spent 10 years being jealous of someone who was drowning quietly the whole time and putting on a performance so good that even her own sister couldn't tell. I think about my grandmother a lot now too. How she carried that secret for a decade without ever once making Claire feel small for it. How she wrote apology letters to a 19-year-old for not knowing how to make things easier, when in reality, she was probably the only reason Claire made it through that year at all. We buried our grandmother without knowing the full weight of what she'd carried for us. And I almost went my whole life resenting a sister who needed me and never felt safe enough to ask. If this story hit you, you're not alone. A lot of us are carrying versions of the perfect one or the disappointment that were never actually true. Drop a comment if you've ever found out something about a sibling that completely rewrote how you saw them. And if you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe. New confessions every week.